Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball's back.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His daughter, she's on the OF.
Okay.
She's on the OF.
Is that right?
Yeah, she's on the OF.
So he's got
now.
an OnlyFans daughter and a little son
who says he can beat Curry and LeBron.
And he's coaching a team that was down 17 to
Keep
nothing.
that dude away from polite society.
Okay, by the way, I'm with you. I didn't know any of that is.
Numerous pops gotta go.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
I can just cash out and say, see you later, bye-bye, and sell that contract. So there is a big difference. I've already said I will never, ever, ever again make a future bet with a sports book where the money gets tied up and I have to wait till the outcome of the event. Don't have to do that. All future bets for me are going to Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And the major thing you're going to say about Tom Izzo for the jump is, Tom Izzo don't duck anybody. You want to hear who they have to play preseason? Kentucky, Duke, UNC, and Arkansas. This is not the Jimmy Boeheim, don't leave New York, Carrier Dome Classic. This guy plays for you.
College Basketball Today, only on
Oh, yes, it's a Monday here. Time to rise and grind on the early line. It's just what we do. It's Armchair Quarterback Monday. Donnie Rightside along with Joe Ranier, and we got you over the next 2 hours to recap exactly what happened this weekend in college football, recap what happened yesterday in the NFL, and a big-time game on Sunday Night Football. That was a defensive masterpiece, or could we call it an offensive disgrace? We'll let you decide, but I love Monday shows here. There's so much to look forward to. It's even a Monday Night Football game on deck, and away we go, Joe. The energy is high, and I'm feeling good. How about you?
A lot to dissect from this weekend, but we're getting to that part of the calendar, Donnie, where every week counts, especially in college and the NFL. That's for sure.
Absolutely, it does. I'm excited here for this because when you got to get energized on a Monday morning, you say to yourself, what do you need to get up with here? How do you have to go about your business, Joe? I'm ready to get down to business. Here's some Caffeinated Joe.
Well, Donnie, today we've got to talk about what we just witnessed here in week 11 of the NFL season, because the panic buttons are being smashed all over the league. So let's take a look at a couple of narratives here and play a good game of fade or not fade. And first up, well, the idea that the Chiefs are going to put it all together and win the AFC West, well, that's absolutely gone. Absolute fade from this point on, Donnie, with the Chiefs. Their 10-year reign is over. It's done with. They lost to the Broncos. They're now 5-5 on the season. Denver, by the way, now 9-2, and the Chiefs are 3 games back in the loss column, and they've lost the head-to-head tiebreaker. Their schedule is a nightmare. Donnie, we can officially say the dynasty has crumbled. And what about the Packers? Are the Packers a real championship team, or is that a real championship defense? Not for me, they're not. I think they're an absolute fade moving forward. You got to be kidding me. You needed a last-second touchdown and a 2-point conversion to beat the New York Giants? The Jameis Winston-led New York Giants, of all team, a 2-8 team that just fired their coach, a team that, as a Jets fan, I can tell you, is a complete dumpster fire, and that's the team that you struggled with. That defense is getting worse as the season progresses, Donnie. I think it's time we tend to look to fade Green Bay moving forward. And by the way, just a shout out to NFL scouts. They don't always get it right, Donnie. Not always. But sometimes they nail it. And the idea that Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback in the NFL is hilarious. There is a reason why Stefanski has not been clamoring to get this guy under center. 4 of 16 for 47 yards and an INT. He looked like he was going in slow motion yesterday. But it is the Browns, and he'll start again next week. And one final one, Donnie, here. The idea that this Detroit Lions offense, well, is it championship quality? Now, listen, there is some truth to this being an issue. I always said all year, I think the Lions defense is championship. The offense, yeah, well, there is a reason why Dan Campbell is now calling plays. And last night, it looked like Dan Campbell was calling plays. But I'll say this. They are certainly good enough to drop 40 points on teams that have a defense like the Washington Commanders. Are they good enough to beat an Eagles defense? I don't think it's even close, but they have the talent and there is still time. So I am not fading Detroit just yet. But the Chiefs are done. The Packers are frauds. I think the Lions will be okay. But Donnie, that's why we've got week 12 coming up and more chaos to discuss.
And it's almost like you can't even afford another loss if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the Colts off of a bye coming next week. Then you got to go to the Cowboys, which, again, when their offense is firing here, they can hang in games. The Texans, one of the better defenses. The Chargers, you're going to have to deal with. You get a layup against the Texans, and where do you finish? On Christmas Day versus the Broncos here. Maybe the Broncos might be resting their starters by the time you get to that game here. But it's somehow the mighty have fallen in some certain arenas here. Still time to get up off that mat. But as the Chiefs sit there at 5-5, we don't know if they can do that. Let's get to the early lineup here. The hottest topics across the sports landscape with deals with my Philadelphia Eagles. Another defensive masterpiece last night as they hold a team that was averaging 30-plus points per game to 9 points. The Eagles improved to 8-2 with their fourth straight victory and take control of the NFC East. And also, if the season ended today, the number 1 overall seed in the NFC.
It's funny, Donnie, because the Eagles last night and that game really was the theme this week where we're seeing championship quality defenses and offenses. Could it be a defensive championship this year? They say it, right? Defense wins championships. That defense that the Eagles have when healthy, it doesn't matter what the offense does, Donnie. It might be good enough to run the table and win another championship here. Yikes, is that I would not want to face them on a week-to-week basis fully healthy like that.
Give me that defense of the Denver Broncos also. They win 22-19. Another fourth quarter comeback by Mr. Comeback himself, Bo Nix, and also one-game appearances here. I was to say one-game outcome, one-score outcomes. The Kansas City Chiefs, they absolutely stink. They got beat yesterday. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. They lost again.
Yeah, both offenses were kind of not great against both of those defenses. But Denver at home held serve, did exactly what they needed to do to separate there. And Kansas City, I've never seen that many amount of flags thrown against Kansas City, Donnie, in maybe the last 5 years combined. And they all happened in that game yesterday. So maybe the big bad witch is, well, finally dead there in the AFC West.
Have you ever seen this before? J.J. McCarthy, 16 of 32. Caleb Williams, 16 for 32. And by the way, J.J. McCarthy was brutal in that football game, but the Bears needed a late field goal to get a win. The Cardiac Bears, they love to come back as well.
Yeah, very good. I mean, listen, just win the games that are on the schedule and good things will happen. And all of a sudden now it's we got maybe still a 3-team race in the AFC North, which NFC North, Donnie, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Steelers absolutely smashed the Bengals, but the big news in this game, you might be down your quarterback for some time. Rodgers hand injury / wrist injury, going to get an MRI / X-ray today. The fear is he might have a cracked bone there. He wasn't looking all that good anyway. Second half, by the way, 24 points for the Pittsburgh Steelers there. How about that, Mason Rudolph?
Well, he's been there, it feels like, for 30 years here, Donnie. So he better be able to step in. You've kept him around forever as the backup, so he did exactly what he should have done as a backup quarterback. Come in, mop it up against a bad defense, and win the game. Are they going to win a whole heck of a lot moving forward with him? We'll have to wait and see.
Crazy windy conditions in Buffalo. The Bills dropped 44 points on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh Allen threw for 317 yards. He did have 2 interceptions, but threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for 3 touchdowns yesterday. Josh Allen does it all for the Bills.
It's so funny. In a week, Donnie, where we saw championship defenses rule the day, well, that's a championship offense. When Josh Allen in Buffalo plays like that, it doesn't make a difference what your defense does. You're not winning many games, and Buffalo proved it yesterday.
No Wemby, no problem for the San Antonio Spurs yesterday. A 123-110 victory over the Sacramento Kings. Double-digit victories. The Spurs improve to 9-4 on the season.
Yeah, well, listen, that is the future right there. Couldn't get past Golden State, but there's a lot of basketball to be played, and it is fun watching that team play, Donnie.
Reunited, and it feels so good. Josh Naylor and the Mariners agreed to a 5-year contract. Sources say we don't have the specifics of that deal, but my goodness, somebody actually got signed before February in Major League Baseball. I can't believe that.
And Seattle is the one who does it. That's even crazier, Donnie. But I think you got a little taste that he got a little taste of the apple there, and now all of a sudden Seattle's like, it's fun playing in October. See how much more
run
money
it back
they spend.
out there. Yeah, run it out there for the Mariners. Run it back again, man. I like that baseball team. We'll see if they can get over the hump next year. We'll see what happens. But Naylor back in the fold for the Mariners here. Much more NFL talk coming up next, which includes some of those spread lines you need to know for your weekend look ahead. Donnie Whiteside and Joe Ranieri. It's the early line. We'll be right back.
After the game about the worst defensive performance in New York City basketball history, he may have been right. But I will say this, very, very impressed by the scoring acumen of both teams. And if they can shore up their defenses, both teams will make a run and march. And I mean a deep one.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. The more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball is back.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Monday morning armchair quarterback. It's what we love to do here on the early line on the SportsGrid Network to get you going around the water cooler. But sometimes we got to say, you know what? Let's look ahead before we hit that rewind button. And here's some of the spread lines that we're going to take a look at this week, which includes some action, which takes place tomorrow on a Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. UMass shoot the fireworks off if they get a field goal or more in this game, taking on Ohio. Look at this line. 32.5 points. And the best part about this opening line here, FanDuel was 26.5. The total 51.5. The question is, will UMass actually get into the end zone is probably the spread line that we need here, Joe. But what is your spread line for this game?
Donnie, it was the first thing that jumped out to me. I was laughing when this thing opened up 27, maybe 27.5. And nobody has had a problem running to the window to lay more than 4 touchdowns against this UMass team. I mean, they got absolutely destroyed by Northern Illinois last week. They gave up 45 points, Donnie, to a team that we talked about all year long has not been able to score more than 21 points in any game this season. They are one of the worst offenses in the MAC, and yet they were able to drop 45 points on this team. I think this number continues to go higher, but I'm with you, Donnie. I don't know that UMass gets a whole lot in this game, if any. I think a team total and definitely to the under might be worth a look-see here with UMass in this game.
Minus 30,000 on the money line. Anybody got 30 grand laying around to make a little bit of scratch in this game? Good luck on that one. But Ohio should be able to move the football up and down the field. That'll take place tomorrow. Let's get to a game in college football, Joe, that the people need to know about on Saturday afternoon, 12 o'clock from the Big Ten. It's Minnesota and Northwestern. Why would we be talking about this game? Lines between 4.5 and 5.5, depending on where you're shopping at. And the total, low. 41.5 to 40.5, depending on where you're shopping at. What's the spread line for Minnesota and Northwestern this weekend?
Well, Donnie, this was originally 3.5, and look at where it is going. And there seems to be a consensus in the marketplace when it comes to Minnesota, and that consensus is fade them. This is not a good offensive team in any way, shape, or form, especially on the road, Donnie. We just saw Oregon absolutely beat the snot out of them. And it's not like Northwestern is some sort of great offensive team, although they played pretty well at Wrigley Field there against Michigan, even though they got outgained by about 300 yards of offense there. But they are at home, and when you're Minnesota in the market and you see anything in a field goal, you better hurry up and fade them, because exactly what's happening here is going to keep happening here for the remainder couple of games. It's fade Minnesota in the market, and I agree with it.
Outson Stadium here this Saturday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, a battle out on the West Coast, some old Pac-12 favorites. USC taking on Oregon. And again, this is a Big Ten game. I know it still doesn't sound correct there. This line opened up around a touchdown favor for Oregon. Now we're seeing it closer to 10 at 9.5. And points are expected here, 59.5. USC at Oregon, 16 versus 6. What's your spread line here, Joe?
Well, anytime the books open up a line, Donnie, between 7 or a little more than 7, and it gets bet up rather quickly like it did in this particular spot, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to do that, because at that point, the book is saying, you tell me, marketplace, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Oregon is just going to have their way here, or do you think that USC, who's always been better at home, Donnie, than they have been on the road, right? That's been the big Lincoln Riley snafu here, is that he can't win a big game on the road, but when he's home, they can put up some points here. I think this is going to be fascinating. Will this eventually get over double digits and stay there, or will there be a little bit of buyback? Because this USC offense is legit here. We'll see if they can get it done. Feels like the over is going to get a little bit of love here in this one as well.
Monday Night Football, the over typically gets love here as well, as we take a look at the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Las Vegas Raiders from Vegas tonight. 50.5 on the totals. You take a look at the side, minus 3.5, about 7 out of every 10 tickets still coming in on the Dallas Cowboys. Are showing up after back-to-back losses, but on their bye week. 2 bad defenses in Vegas tonight, Joe. What's your spread line here?
Yeah, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody looking at the Raiders right now, which is why that hook is still available, Donnie. I mean, I'm showing the majority of tickets, majority of handle, all on the Dallas Cowboys here. And it makes sense, right? The Cowboys coming off of their bye week. And if it's one thing we know about this offense of Dallas is they'll be able to put up some points here against a terrible defense. And the Raiders defense qualifies as being terrible. The only question is, can Geno Smith and company, who there are some stories about him being a little banged up here at this point. That's a shocker. But is Dallas going to be able to defensively hold them in check here. It feels like points are coming, but it feels like a majority of those points are coming with the Cowboys and that offense in their first game back since, of course, the tragic passing of their young player just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, better get on the trail here of some victories here, the Dallas Cowboys, if you want to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get in at this point, but you never know unless they start with a victory tonight. 2 straight losses, then the bye week, then coming off the bye. Should be fresh and get a pretty good offensive punch against a really, really bad Raiders team here. Let's get to the association tonight. 7:30 p.m. tip time. That's from Miami. It's the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat. Look at this total shaping up. 241.5. And a slight favorite towards the Miami Heat at home at -1.5, Joe. What's your spread line here for this game?
Well, it's so funny, Donnie, because it's like, wait a minute, didn't we just see this? Yes, we did. You got to love the scheduling of the NBA, Donnie, with these home and homes or home games that they have been scheduling. We saw the Cavs play the Heat 2 games in 3 days. Now we're going to see the Heat and the Knicks do it again, only this time it's going to be in Miami. And yes, Donnie, that total to me is going to be going through the roof once again with 2 teams that are going to chuck it up and have fun doing it. So I expect another wildly high-scoring game between the Knicks and the Heat.
As the NBA rolls on, as we wait till Christmas Day, the official start of the NBA season for most people here, but also understand this. We're heading with some of these spread lines, Joe, into week 13 of the college football season, and week 12 begins once the game tonight ends between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys. So we got a lot of things to start cooking with. There will be winners and losers. There will be teams in the college football playoff. There will be teams like the Chiefs that hope to make the playoffs in the NFL. Let's get to the Monday Night Football game tonight, fellas. It's the early line. We'll be right back.
Looking for an edge in betting football? Injuries can make or break a game. Get insider knowledge from Dr. David Chow and the team of experts with Sick Picks at Sports Injury Central. We reveal hidden health-based advantages the sports books miss. Our doctors provide insights, and our algorithm tells you who to bet on. Spreads, props, totals, in-game bets, Sick Picks covers it all. Go to SickScore.com and sign up for Sick Picks and use the promo code SportsGrid for a free week today.
I'm not throwing it back. You come and get it. Like, no way. Even I'm not a fan of the team. I'm not, Vladimir Guerrero, home run, hit ball, these things are authenticated. They have holograms on them. You can prove it. Right? So, there'll be some Blue Jay fan give you a couple of $100K for that. You know what I mean? Guaranteed. World Series ball, home run, you're getting a couple of $100K at least. I'm not throwing that back. No way in hell.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
This just goes to show that, you get a very compelling, competitive series between 2 teams. And listen, I understand very much international with, the team playing in Canada, Toronto, and Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto and everybody else. But dare I say, I think these ratings would have been super high anyway. It was just great baseball. Next day, people talking about the games and the biggest win for Major League Baseball in some time.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here.
Monday Night Football. Ooh, the NFL gave us a gem tonight, didn't they? Well, sometimes value's in the eye of the beholder, and sometimes you can just give us a game that we expect high scoring. We can all have fun, bet some money, and make some money on prop bet sides and or totals. The Dallas Cowboys tonight are going to travel to Las Vegas, coming off of their bye week here to take on the Raiders. This line, Joe, opened up at 3. Now, it was 3 with a little bit of juice. Some outlets, still showing threes with juice. Most of them light juice on the -3.5s here for the Dallas Cowboys. A total listed at 50.5. So let's start with the side itself. I do think the Dallas Cowboys are the better football team, but it is the NFL, and it's still, yes, hard to win on the road. The Dallas Cowboys probably playing more of a home game with how their fans travel versus who's actually going to be buying those tickets in Las Vegas. So I think that amounts to something. But the one thing we do know is here, both of these defenses, Joe, are really bad, and that's going to be at the center of the game focus tonight.
And that to me is the difference here, Donnie, because I disagree with the market thinking Dallas is the worst offense in the league. You do know, right, that Dallas now has Quinnen Williams in the center of that defense, right? You do know that they also, for the first time, will have their stud linebacker, DeMarvion Overshown, available tonight, as well as their rookie quarterback, Siobhan Revelle, making their season debuts. Now you put Kenny Clark there in the middle, Quinnen Williams, and this is no longer the worst defense in the NFL. It's going to be able to stop the run. It's going to be much more athletic. And who exactly are the Raiders throwing the ball to or running? What, Ashton Genty is all of a sudden going to run the football with Quinnen Williams in the middle? Absolutely not. They've had a couple of weeks to get these guys healthy. This will be the most healthy this defense has been in a long time for the Cowboys. And something tells me this offense won't have any problems actually scoring in this spot here. Can't trust the Raiders here, and I am looking very forward to seeing, now that they have all these guys on that defensive side of the ball, let's see exactly what the Raiders and Geno Smith can do against them, because I don't think it's going to be a whole heck of a lot.
And take a look at the head-to-head with the quarterback props tonight. Geno Smith around a 231.5 passing prop live, and Dak Prescott 254.5. The totals here for the touchdowns: Geno Smith over 1.5 touchdown passes, -114. Dak Prescott over 1.5 touchdown passes, -158. You figure that Dak Prescott is going to get his yards. He's got those weapons, but also sometimes you look at that Dallas Cowboys defense, and if Dallas is winning, Geno's going to have to be throwing, which could be bad.
Yeah, well, it's very bad, Donnie, especially since now he's going to be under pressure, and they're not. If you thought you'd have a chance at some sort of running game, well, they did away with that here with the trade market. But getting some of their healthy guys in that second and third layer there in the linebacking and the secondary is going to be big. And listen, I have no doubt that the Raiders are going to be playing from behind in this game, which means Geno's going to have to probably drop back and throw the ball an awful lot. I don't know who he's throwing it to. Brock Bowers is it. But even then, I don't know how much time he's going to have. So I think of all the guys here, it feels like Dak is going to have himself a pretty good night like he usually does against sub-500 teams. But I think Geno's going to have to sling it tonight if they're going to have any shot at actually pulling off the upset.
You know, Joe brings up a really good point at this, too, because you can't underestimate the push of the pocket up the middle. We're not talking about an athletic quarterback that can really get outside the pocket. Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive tackles in football, could make a difference here in that running game and also in the passing game just by getting it, pressuring the quarterback in the face, forcing him off of his spot. Let me tell you about the player rushing props here tonight, Joe. Ashton Genty, 63.5. You look at Javonte Williams, 75.5. The correlation for me in this marketplace tonight, Joe, when the Dallas Cowboys win football games, haven't won a lot, but take a look at Javonte Williams' numbers here. Against the Giants, 40-37 victory, 18 carries, 97 yards. The Green Bay game, which was a tie, 20 carries, 85 yards. A win against the Jets, 16 carries, 135 yards. The win against Washington, 19 for 116. The expectations of the Dallas Cowboys should win tonight. It's a bad defense for the Raiders and maybe get those extra carries. But when they're winning football games, Javonte Williams is rushing, Joe, for a lot of yards.
Yeah, he is. And he is a good bet to be able to have some success in this one as well. Plus, it'll set up a lot of the play action. I expect Pickens to have a lot of yards here against that secondary. And I also don't know how Ashton Genty is getting over that total, Donnie, at any time soon here tonight. That whole offensive line of the Raiders are all backups, including no more Colton Miller, who was their best offensive lineman. He's nowhere to be found yet.
8 rushing touchdowns for Javonte Williams on the season. He's a minus 185 price point tonight in the anytime touchdown market. Ashton Ginty minus 155, and then Brock Bowers minus 105, plus money on CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. How about that, people? Well, let's get back to what happened last night in Philadelphia between two of the best teams in the NFC, the Lions and the Eagles. Next, right here on the Early Line.
After the game about the worst defensive performance in New York City basketball history, he may have been right. But I will say this, very, very impressed by the scoring acumen of both teams. And if they can shore up their defenses, both teams will make a run and march. And I mean a deep one.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball's back.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Sunday Night Football in Philadelphia last night, which saw the 6-3 Detroit Lions taking on the 7-2 Philadelphia Eagles. And what we heard all along, Joe Ranieri, for the last year is circle the calendar game for the Detroit Lions. They didn't get a chance to beat the Eagles last year because they got smacked in the playoffs by the Washington Commanders, who then got smacked by the Philadelphia Eagles, went to the Super Bowl and smacked the Kansas City Chiefs. But we were led to believe this game just means more. They asked Dan Campbell about that game about the circling the calendar before the game. He was like, hey, you know what? That's our mentality at this point, because the question was on Aiden Hutchinson and why he thought this game was so important, which we all knew it was. You want to come out and say it sometimes? Not necessarily, because sometimes it adds to desperation. But you wanted to win this game and sort of jumpstart your season for the Lions. The expectations were, the Lions were coming to town with a really good offense here, but it's cold weather conditions, some windy conditions. It's a dome team, and sometimes Jared Goff doesn't perform all that well outside of the dome. Case in point last night, 14 of 37, 6.9 yards per passing attempt, sacked twice in that game, a QBR rating, Joe, of 9.5. The Eagles come away with the victory 16-9. So much to get into with this game.
Yeah, and really, listen, it was all about the defenses last night, and both offenses have shown some flaws and some issues, Donnie, sustaining drives, but it gets tenfold when you go up against two defenses flying around the field like you had last night. And listen, we know the Eagles have struggled offensively all year long. It's nothing new, but now that they have this healthy defense with Vic Fangio, man, my goodness. I don't know what offense, Donnie, I could point to right now and say they would have done a better job than what Detroit was able to do in that game last night. Sometimes you tip your cap. The defenses are the best unit on the field, and the Eagles, This defense is ferocious.
Yeah, Sam Laporta not available last night, and that could have been one of those key guys on a windy night. Who's your best friend? The tight end over the middle for about 5 to 7 yards. Excuse me, at that point. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12 carries for 39 yards, but he was electric in the passing game, as he typically is. 5 catches for 107 yards. But if we focused on the quarterbacks last night, there were plays to be made, specifically for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, granted, there were some windy conditions out there, some misfires. Saquon Barkley had a wide-open touchdown, it looked like, from about 40 or 50 yards that was overthrown into the end zone. But the plays that needed to be made were by both of these defenses, Joe. And you bring up a pretty good point, because the focal point is on the Eagles. And yes, their defense was spectacular, holding down the Detroit Lions. But how many times did the Lions offense put their defense in such a bad situation, and they kept on making stops? Case in point, in the first quarter, you get a tip ball interception by Cooper DeJean inside the red zone. You hold them to 3. That feels good. And sometimes it is all about the momentum, Joe. And the reason I bring that up is you had a touchdown catch, which was an electric run from Jamison Williams. That game's tied 6-6. Extra point pending to take the lead. What does your wide receiver do? Jumps on the goalpost, get a 15-yard penalty, which pushes it back to roughly a 50-yard extra point in windy conditions. That extra point was missed, sort of taking a little bit of gas out of the bubble, but the second half was controlled by the defenses. Now understand this, Joe. I want to say this. Let's go from a Detroit side, because I know you have an opinion on this. They love to go for it on fourth down repeatedly here, and they did that last night. 0 for 5 on fourth down, which is usually an anomaly. I think that's the most since 2002 for the Detroit Lions. Did you agree with the ultra aggressiveness in a close game for the Detroit Lions?
Well, I think as the game went on, Donnie, it was clear the fact that you went for it once or twice and didn't get it, then you had to go for it every time, because it wasn't like the Eagles were capitalizing on any of it. Donnie, I mean, listen, one time they went for it. One of those 5 times was in the red zone there. They got it all the way down inside the 10-yard line, went for it instead of kicking the points. And listen, you're on the road. It's who you are. You're trying to give this offense a boost, and you're not worried in the least bit that the Eagles offensively are going to take advantage of it. So once you went for it once or twice, there was no reason not to go for it for the rest of the game. So I agreed with Dan Campbell, but the execution, just not there.
I'll tell you, the Philadelphia Eagles now with, Vic Fangio, second-year defense, really coming along. So talented now on the defensive line. Great trade. Jalen Phillips looks shot out of a cannon every single week. The linebacking core, sensational. Some of the best cover cornerbacks they have in football, on the outside with Mitchell, on the inside there with Cooper DeJean. They were just making plays all along, and they were the bailout for the past 2 weeks. Now, also, let's talk about this factor, because Nick Sirianni's record in the NFL is absolutely staggeringly sensational. Been to multiple Super Bowls, has a Super Bowl championship. There is something to be said about that. And yes, we like aggression. But last week, the 4th and 6 call to A.J. Brown made no sense. And by the way, you were only up a field goal at that point, which meant if Green Bay could get 25 yards, they would be in field goal range. Now, granted, the Philadelphia Eagles were bailed out once again by their defense, and a 58, 59, 60-yarder into the win last week wasn't going to work out. The Eagles won. We had another interesting situation last night come up for Nick Sirianni. 4th and a couple inches. Typically, the Eagles on the tush push are guaranteed if you do it twice, you're going to get it. They did it once, they did it twice, they didn't get it. But they did it on their own 29-yard line, leaving the door open once again for the Lions instead of punting the football 50 yards downfield and say, hey, you know what? If you're going to get back in the field goal range, it's going to cost you at least 40, 50, at least a minute here, and the game's probably over at that point. They don't get the tush push. Detroit gets the football and kicks a field goal, which put them right back into the ball game, Joe.
Yeah, listen, it's not like both teams didn't have opportunities, right? And they certainly could have, the Eagles could have put the game away a couple of times there in the second half, but could not take advantage of it. The play calling was a little suspect. They did lose Lane Johnson again in the first half with a foot injury. He didn't return, kind of changed things a little bit, but it felt like every yard for Barkley, every yard for there was nothing easy here, but they took away Amon St. Brown, and you mentioned it. Laporta nowhere to be found, but the best defense against tight ends in the NFL are the Eagles. So there weren't a whole lot of options for Detroit either to have some success, but both teams, I think, left a few points out on the field last night.
No, they certainly did. It's just funny how it winds up where, yeah, you can be, advantageous and say we can end this game with a tush push. So sometimes just being smart, like Bill Belichick was, or not Bill Belichick, excuse me, Bill Parcells. Always, I love the way he coached in the 80s. I'm just going to play the percentages here. If it's late in the game, we're up a couple points, I'm going to run the football. You're going to burn your timeouts. I'm going to pin you deep. And if you drive the length of the field, so be it, and you beat us. And chances are they're probably not going to be able to do that. I just thought it was interesting taking a look at the way the game played out here. But also, A.J. Brown, angry here, Joe. His reception prop was 4.5 yesterday, plus 112. He gets 7 catches yesterday on 11 targets, but still only 49 yards. The Eagles' offense, they did play 2 good defenses back-to-back, but the defense for them has really been the superstar. How do we see the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward, and now certainly putting that clamp on the Eastern Division?
Well, I mean, listen, the way they say defense wins championships, right? And what you are seeing over the last couple of weeks, Donnie, is a championship winning defense of the Eagles. And quite honestly, at this point, as we head into week 12?
Yep.
That's going to have to remain true, Donnie, because I don't see this Eagles offense flipping a switch anywhere. It's very clunky. The offensive line has got some issues, and we don't have a 2,000-yard rusher anymore and Saquon Barkley back there, do we? So this is a little different. They're going to have to do it a little differently this year. It's going to have to be all about the defense, I feel.
No, they certainly are. And also understand this. When you take a look at the odds there, the Eagles have beat the Rams. The Eagles have beat the Lions. The Eagles have beat the Packers. They have beat the Buccaneers. They are going to play the Chicago Bears coming up on Black Friday in a week and a half. They play the Cowboys and already beat them. So the one thing you need to know is it's hard to beat the Eagles, but even harder to beat them at home, because those conditions you saw yesterday, that's exactly what it's going to be like in January if the Eagles have the number 1 overall seed, and that goes a long way. Detroit outside, completely different than Detroit inside. We'll see how that factors into it here. But also looking at some of those, the Chicago Bears now, they actually have the lead in the NFC North because of that loss last night, and the Packers at 6-3-1. That's incredible. By the way, do we believe in the Bears? Are the Bears good enough to win that division, Joe?
No, they're not. The Bears have been taking advantage of a terrible schedule that they have been the better team in, but just the true elite of the NFC, I don't think the Bears are close.
The Eagles at the season end today, the number 1 seed. They got a lot of stuff to work out, but you know what we got to work out next? Tom Vecchio, what he thinks of tonight's Monday Night Football game and what the heck happened yesterday. We'll be right back.
After the game about the worst defensive performance in New York City basketball history, he may have been right. But I will say this, very, very impressed by the scoring acumen of both teams. And if they can shore up their defenses, both teams will make a run and march. And I mean a deep one.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball's back.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Let's get into it, people. It's the early line on a Monday morning. It's an armchair quarterback Monday. It's Donnie Rightside along with Joe Rainier. We welcome in Tom Vecchio here to the show. A lot went down yesterday. A big game in Monday Night Football. Not necessarily between two teams that we think are going to be competitive in the playoff landscape, but we could be getting some points. We could be getting some options on who you want to score those points. And away we go, Tom Vecchio. What's good today, man?
We're coming off a crazy day of the NFL. A lot of close games, a lot of games decided by last-second field goals, a lot of quarterback injuries. There's a ton to get to, not only for the NFL week coming up, but also tonight.
And a lot of drops in the NFL yesterday. Just watching that Green Bay Packers game against, the Giants. They couldn't catch on offense or defense, but yet they still won that football game because when it all mattered, Jameis at the end of the game, miscommunication with the wide receiver, ends with an interception, and the Green Bay Packers survive. But tonight, we're going to take a look at the Dallas Cowboys here, Tom. Fresh off of a bye, heading out west in a dome stadium. Don't have to worry about any windy or cold conditions here. This total coming in around 49.5 to 50.5, depending where you're shopping at. And a favorite for the Cowboys, which opened up around 3 and sits around 3.5, depending on where you're shopping at tonight with the side as well. How do we look at this football game fresh off a bye for the Dallas Cowboys, Tom?
My immediate look is the under. Seeing a 50.5 line for a Raiders game, I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to get points in this game? What are the Raiders going to be doing on offense? They're one of the lowest scoring teams on offense. Now, if you were to tell me, the Cowboys defense, which I'm not going to say they're good. We know they're bad, but I think they may be trending up. The trades, getting a couple players back, they are going to be getting some pieces back. So if you told me that the Cowboys won this game 27-20, 28-20, this game stays under. Raiders do more scoring than anticipated, but they're not doing enough to push us over 50. Like, the Cowboys defense is bad. The Raiders defense is terrible. But in order for me to be comfortable with this game going over 50, I would say comfortably the Cowboys need to have 35 points for me to be comfortable with that, because we can't trust the Raiders on offense to do anything. So immediately I look to the under, just because I don't know that the Raiders can do enough to do their part in this game to push it over 50 points.
And if they're playing from behind, which is what we think they're going to be doing here in this spot, because Dak and Dallas always play sub-500 teams like they look like world beaters, Donnie. So that means Geno's going to have to throw the ball a lot here tonight. I mean, is it just Bowers? Do we get Gentry receiving props involved? Like, he's got to throw it to somebody if he's trailing, right?
Absolutely. I love the Gentry look for receiving yards, 16.5 coming out of the backfield. There were some quotes about Brock Bowers, the offense coordinator. They're saying, like, they didn't say, the same quote that the Lions have said, but they said they just need to get Bowers more involved. They didn't fail him in that Broncos game, but the fact that he's ending with one catch for 31 yards is an issue. Now, there's a part of me that likes to say, if the Cowboys can do their part and kind of take Bowers out of this game, it has to come down to the other players. It has to come down to Trey Tucker. For me, it would be siding with Gentry out of the backfield. Geno looks terrible in the pocket. The offensive line is not giving him any time. So deep shots to Trey Tucker would be great to see, but that's not going to happen if the pass rush is getting after Geno Smith. So give me Gentry coming out of the backfield. I certainly like that.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch and see it play out. And also, Tom, you know me, I like to look at those touchdown props in the game tonight. Javonte Williams is a favorite at -185. He scores a lot. He's got 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. Ashton Gentry to -155. You figure if they get down to the goal line, there's an opportunity here. Brock Bowers -105. But then you get that plus money here. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. If I would tell you tonight, would you be shocked if at least one of those guys, I should say, scores a touchdown? It's plus money in your back pocket. And we saw some of your plays come up here. How you play in that wide receiver combo there for the Dallas Cowboys?
It has to be CeeDee Lamb. And, I can make the argument for Jake Ferguson that I like Lamb, Pickens, and Ferguson. I think at least 2 of the 3 come through tonight. But CeeDee Lamb's got to score. Again, I've always talked about this with you, Donnie, literally for years at this point. When a player has this high of a target share, when they have this high of a red zone target share, and they're simply not scoring, they're seeing double-digit targets in back-to-back weeks, I'm willing to buy into that player having positive touchdown regression. When you have an over 21% target share, the red zone target share looks a little bit fluky this year because he missed so many games. We have to isolate the sample size that he played versus he didn't play. Jake Ferguson technically leads the team with the highest red zone target share, but they paid CeeDee Lamb, a couple years ago, all that money. He's been going without touchdowns. I just think this is the spot that he scores. It's not a super big number, but it's the right time to back CeeDee Lamb, and we're getting plus money at it.
Yeah.
It feels like A lot of running, a lot of big shots down the field. So CeeDee Lamb is great. What do you think Pickens' role is going to be? 2 or 3 catches for 70 yards, and that's he gets the big. Who's going to stretch the field for him, CeeDee Lamb or Pickens here tonight?
I would certainly go with Pickens. I do really like how he's developed with Dallas. And I got to be honest, I wasn't super high on him coming into the season. I just wasn't sure where he was going to fit in the offense. But the time that CeeDee Lamb missed really elevated him to showing that he can be a better route runner than simply just a deep threat, which is kind of what he was in Pittsburgh. He has really changed his game a little bit to be like a consistent route running. Now, he always has that deep shot ability, and anytime we can get a terrible defense on the other side with a competent offense, as we have tonight going up against the Raiders, the deep shots with Pickens will be there. Over 24.5 for his longest reception, I think, is always in play.
Ooh. How about this, though, Tom? I don't see this right here. I'm just looking at FanDuel quickly. Going over some of the names at wide receiver. I don't see Jack Besh out here. Should we be playing Jack Besh if we can find a number on this guy tonight? Or do we just roll with Tyler Lockett because they love Tyler Lockett for some reason?
Listen, he's got the on-field connection with Geno, but at 26.5, Lockett's number was 14.5 for the Broncos game against Denver on Thursday night. Like, that has been bet up or just adjusted. I'm not betting into a line that has jumped 12 yards or 13 yards in a week and nothing has changed. I'd rather just stick with Gente at 16.5 and trust that roll is going to come through. And again, looking to Brock Bowers, some capacity for him. I think he has to be the guy tonight.
Yeah, I like Javonte on the ground, 75.5. Me and Joe were going over a couple correlations where when the Dallas Cowboys win, he really runs wild, and the expectations are they win, which means extra carries possibly in the fourth quarter, and see how that one lines up. But, Tom, just going back to yesterday and certainly last night's game, Philadelphia and Detroit, are we worried about Detroit moving forward? And also, are we worried about Kansas City moving forward after both those teams lost yesterday?
You'd be more worried about Kansas City just based on the fact that they're not currently in a playoff position. Next week, the Lions host the Giants. The Giants are coming off a game where they played pretty well against the Packers, and the Lions on national TV look terrible. Give me the Lions, and I think they blow through this number on the cover, and I think they just run away with things at home, and people forget what happened against the Eagles.
There we go. Week 12 on deck. Tom's already ready for Week 12, but let's see if we can cash in some of those prop bets from Tom tonight in Monday Night Football. Donnie right side, Joe Ranier. We'll be back. Tom, thanks for rising and grinding with us right here on a Monday.
After the game about the worst defensive performance in New York City basketball history, he may have been right. But I will say this, very, very impressed by the scoring acumen of both teams. And if they can shore up their defenses, both teams will make a run and march. And I mean a deep one.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball is back.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Let's talk about the association, and sometimes not what's actually happening on the court, but what's happening off the court here. Donnie Rightside along with Joe Ranieri on a Monday morning Armchair Quarterback NFL edition. We still have to talk about the association. Yahoo Sports sent out a tweet. How about this? The NBA has asked the Los Angeles Lakers and multiple other teams to hand over documents and other property as part of its investigation into illegal sports gambling, The Athletic has reported. This is a result of the charges filed against Damon Jones, LeBron James' former shooting coach, who had special access to the Lakers. Never a good sign here when you're getting the feds involved and they want answers, Joe.
Well, this is what happens when you go in front of Congress and you have committees from the House and the Senate asking the NBA, exactly why did you not uncover any credible evidence that players and coaches are actually cheating here? Like, what in the world? What are you doing? And now all of a sudden the NBA's like, wow, we're going to hire an outside law firm to check into that. We should have come up with something. So the minute this went in front of Congress and the cameras are rolling, now the NBA has to react. Now an independent law firm. Now they're going to go ahead and get all of these cell phone records and everything else. And who knows where it goes, but this is more about saving face right now, I think, than anything else for the NBA.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see where this actually goes all the way down, how quickly they can squash this to get out of the public. But also, I find it interesting that that Yahoo tweet includes, it says, investigation into illegal sports gambling. I don't think that's referenced correctly here because it's not. It's probably in the legal sports marketplace, but you're doing things that are nefarious at that point. So that leads you to believe, oh, illegal sports gambling, that's bookies and all, like, so getting some. No, that's probably not the case here, but I want to see the depth of this actually goes and when they actually conclude the scenario, and hopefully we find out there sooner than later. But let's keep it with the Lakers here, who might be tanking games or tanking information, but LeBron James reassigned from the G League back to the Lakers. Let me ask you a question on this. Like LeBron James practicing with the G League, like assigned to them. He couldn't practice with the Lakers. He couldn't get his workout in with the Lakers. This whole thing. And by the way, he's ramping up now, so we're not even sure when he's going to play, Joe.
Yeah, and by the way, two of the trainers on the Lakers staff who are now cooperating and have turned over their cell phones only have a job because they're LeBron's training staff. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes as well. But why is he? I don't, Donnie, I still say we're not seeing him until Christmas. I think they're going to milk this for as long as possible. And he's not going to want to play a full season. We knew this coming into here. It is more important for them to figure out some of the other things they got going on, and then slot LeBron in when the time is right. I think they're going to slow play this until the end of the year.
I love it too. Like the NBA is so starved for attention because it gets none of it until after football season starts to wind down. That it was breaking news, like that LeBron James was going to start practicing again. Always fun stuff here. The Pelicans, breaking news: they stink as a franchise. They stink every year. Their head coaches stink. Their players stink. Their organization stinks here. And Willie Green, he's fired after 5 seasons with the team here. 2-10 the start of the year. Out and about from your job here, Willie. Sorry.
No. Yeah, well, it's a good point, Donnie, because now that so Willie Green's the problem. Great. They're still going to stink.
Correct.
I mean, who are we kidding? I mean, the dysfunction begins at the top with this organization. And once again, what's going on, Zion? What are we doing here? They've got a lot of issues there. Willie Green was just, the players didn't like him. Okay, so now that means what? They're gonna rattle off 30 straight wins now, Donnie? How's that gonna work? They're still gonna stink, and it starts from the top, not Willie Green.
How about this? Starting from the top for the Mavs. Well, the ownership group had the sign off on Luka Doncic getting traded here. Nico Harrison was fired because of that. Now we get the latest update from Shams Charania yesterday that the Mavericks' Anthony Davis will miss at least 7 to 10 more days here as rehabs from a calf strain because they're worried about him coming back too early and popping his Achilles here. My goodness, man, Dallas. Get it together.
Yeah, read between the lines. We figure we'll have him traded within 7 to 10 days, so there's absolutely no risk, and we don't want him on the court, knowing that he's kind of glass Joe anyway, and maybe the air conditioning blows too hard and he breaks something. So, yeah, I would expect Anthony Davis may not play another game for the Dallas Mavericks here.
Oh, my goodness, man. The Dallas Mavericks had Luka Doncic. Just try to put some pieces around them. You trade Luka Doncic. You figure out the pieces to get back to a championship. And you might never see those pieces actually play together. And that team already blown up after 6 to 8 months where the expectations were, wait till you see him with Anthony Davis and all those bigs out there. My goodness, man. The Dallas Mavericks in trouble here. Hour number 2 on the horizon next. More hot topics, more NFL talk on the way. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back on the early line.